Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at what item level you should be for endgame content in World of Warcraft. I did this video but I have to re-record the audio because I had left the football playing on in the background. So if you think this is a re-upload, you are not insane, it is. So let's begin. So let's talk first about mythics, and before I get into all of it I just want to say, so fundamentally, if you are a DPS, you are probably going to be, or have to be, nearer the top of these curves. Whether if you are a tank or a healer, probably need to be lower end of these curves. The reason for this is DPS is just a lot more competitive, more slots in teams, more roles in dungeons, more just general requirement for them. You're competing against a larger pool of players, and generally the requirement for performance is a lot higher on you. People think tanks or healers are hard, but actually you get kind of by just through merit of your utility alone. As long as you're not dying and as long as you're healing, you're kind of okay. People aren't expecting the world of you. As a DPS, it's a bit different. You are in direct competition with other players who could be doing better than you. So just take a pinch of salt when looking at these. Your class, your spec, and whether you're a certain type of role will affect the item level. Now for Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus is a game mode that has a lot of array of difficulty. It starts at Mythic 0 and it works all the way through to Mythic 10 Plus, which I would consider incredibly difficult. If you're looking at Mythic Plus, it is super important to understand that to start the Mythic Plus journey, so to kind of begin with your Mythic 2s, 3s, 4s, you are looking at being around about at a full Mythic Dungeon level, so 636. If you are at about 636, you can look at doing Mythic Keystones 2 to 4s, etc. To move on to Mythic Keystones 4 to 5 tiers, you want to kind of sit at just around the 640 to 645 mark. 645 if you're more DPS, 640, 639 if you're kind of a tank. Mythic 7 Plus, you're going to need to be close to the 650 mark, so 649. Mythic 8 to 9 tier, you're going to need to exceed the 650 mark. You're going to need to be at about 652, generally speaking. And for Mythic 10 Plus, you're going to need to be at around about 655, closer to the 660 mark. This is generally where you need to be. Please bear in mind also you will need your set bonus, you will need to enchant your gear, you will need to do buffing, potions, etc. Like, it's not just about item level. If you're a good player, you'll be doing a lot more to endeavor your gear to success. But this is just a guideline for people who are wondering. For Mythic Zeros, you don't have to be anything special, but I would say you need to be at around the 625, 626 mark to kind of start with your Mythic Zeros without really letting the group down and, costing performance-wise. So yeah. So next we're going to talk about raiding. So raiding, obviously the Liberation of the Undermined is the raid for this expansion. Liberation of the Undermined has 3 major difficulties: normal, heroic, and mythic. LFR, you don't necessarily need to have a good item level because you can be carried by a lot of people, but I would suggest being at about 620. It's just so that you're not really kind of doing nothing and you're at least contributing somewhere along the lines. You're mainly going to want to start with normal. Now normal drops 639 to 642. Raiding is a weird spectrum because of how raiding works. So obviously bosses drop set pieces, bosses also drop scaling items, the last boss drops higher item level items. DPS are almost going to have to be fully equipped for a raid depending on spec and role, depending on spec and class. So for example, for normal you might find people are expecting you to be like 640s as a DPS, which you might think is crazy because then you can't get anything, but it is unfortunately how it is. Whereas for tanks, you can kind of get away with like being in your 630, 636 healers as well. For heroic level, everyone generally needs to be in that 645, 650 range. DPS, you're going to need to be above the 650 bracket for sure, like without a doubt. And generally speaking, that's going to be where you lie. For Mythic, you're going to need to be 660 plus. Whether you're a tank, healer, DPS, whatever it is, you need to be, I don't want to say 660 plus exactly, but you definitely need to be sitting on that 659, 58 as a tank. DPS, unfortunately, you're going to need to be pretty much on 660, like bare minimum, if you are a meta spec kind of DPS. Raiding is a little bit unfortunate in that nature, especially if you're pugging, the requirements are a lot higher. If you're in a guild group, then you're generally going to have an easier time because one, you have better coordination, which means your gear score requirements are lower, and two, players are more forgiving, so you have a little bit more leeway with your performance and just general like overall performance and everything. So yeah, it's definitely a bit more forgiving in a guild group sense. Last but not least, let's talk about delves. So delves are the content that I would say has one of the widest spectrums of gear requirements, largely because firstly, tanks in certain classes definitely deal with delves a lot better than others. A really good tank like your Vengeance Demon Hunter can probably do tier 8-9 delves at like 630, whereas like your DPS are probably going to need to be in the 640s to deal with tier 11 and 10 delves. So it's all going to be very dependent on what's going on. Now for me, personally speaking, so what I would suggest is for delves tiers 3 to 4, you don't have to be very high geared. Literally, like they say here, you don't have to be high geared. So for your 3, 4s, 5, 6, 7s, you can be in the 620s. It's not a big deal. For your tier 8s, you want to be, for the sweet spot for performance, you want to be at about 630. In your 630s, you're going to be sitting good, looking really nicely, and then obviously you can scale all the way up pretty much to 658 with delves. So, ideally you want to be there for tier 11s, but I would say for a DPS, 11s will be comfortable for you at about the 645 mark, so around 645. Whereas as a tank, you'll probably be, like I said, comfortable around 636, 632. Maybe not comfortable, but you'll be able to get it done, and done reliably. My suggestion always for players, please, when you're doing delves, understand your delves and your class limitations. It's actually more about understanding your delve than it is about anything else. If you know what you're meant to do with your delve, then chances are you're going to be fine anyway. Whereas if you don't know what to do and you ram into lampposts, then yeah, you're going to struggle more than item level, realistically speaking. So that is that. That should give you a really good idea, I think, as to where you need to be for content. Obviously, guys, please understand that this is mainly in regards to pugging. So like doing content with groups of public players in LFG, looking for group, etc. So this is not like if you're in a guild or a successful raiding guild or anything like that, you're going to not need gear scores like this, and you're going to be finding a lot easier time. So please don't take this as a golden rule, but for people who are wondering, who are interested in participating, this is a pretty solid guideline, I'd say. But let me know your thoughts down below, and thanks for watching. Bye.